In this video, I want to spend just a couple moments and give you an overview of web viewers. Now, in my opinion, web viewers are one of the little tools within the FileMaker platform. Technically, it's an object on screen. You can see one right here. The web viewer has single-handedly saved the FileMaker platform probably starting about 10 years ago. Starting with FileMaker 8.5, FileMaker created this object called a web viewer, and what it does is it's exactly what it sounds. It's an object on screen that displays content from a website, typically. At least that's the way it was originally envisioned. FileMaker really, when they built it, has even said this. They were shocked by all the insane uses of the web viewer. And of course, the immediate thing people could do is you could be on an address and see a map of your driving directions. It's very common use. Here is a record in the sample database. This is a container image. This is a web page, and it's currently the RCC web page at this current moment. All sorts of things can be done with the web viewer. Understand, in a video like this, if you want to learn everything there is to know about a web viewer, we need to spend about another 60 hours on another video course called Web Viewers and HTML and Cascading Style Sheets and all that kind of stuff. So really, it's saying this is a box right here. And when you double click it, it comes up with these options right here. And there's some basic options for some maps, things like that, very basic things. I could turn this one into a map instead, maybe. And so we go back to browse mode and it loads the maps, right? So then you have your maps here and you can sign in and do all sorts of stuff. So once again, web viewers are web browsers. They are also driven by the operating system. So that means that if you're on FileMaker Go, you're on WebDirect Anywhere, you're on FileMaker Pro, obviously Mac or Windows. FileMaker is not rendering the web viewer. What FileMaker does is it carves out this little square spot and it tells the operating system to render the web viewer. So understand that the web viewer is being driven by the operating system. The web viewer can be data that's on the internet, or FileMaker can take data out of itself and kind of carve it up and pass it to the web viewer or to the operating system, and then the operating system renders it. So what do I mean by this? Let's take a look at the new super duper amazing calendar that's in FM Starting Point. So here's FM Starting Point right here. We had an older calendar in here that was a little rickety. It was fine, but it was kind of really old fashioned. And the problem was I didn't want to put in a calendar that was impossible to work with or didn't have some sort of distinct advantage. And I've been approached by people before who've said, hey, why don't we put our amazing calendar in here? And of course, the amazing part for them is that you would have to write this person a check for hundreds of dollars to put the calendar into the product. And I don't like that. Starting Point is kind of supposed to be this free tool that's training. So this is the new calendar we have in here. It's epically awesome. So this, if we go to layout mode right now, I'm going to drop into layout mode. This is the web viewer. So we got this banner across the top. We've got these buttons right here. And so this entire area down here is a web viewer. It's not getting the data from the internet. The FileMaker file is formatting a bunch of data in HTML fashion. So it's doing HTML. Obviously, you see a bunch of HTML stuff in here. And there's a bunch of CSS and frankly, some pretty complex code in there. And this calendar was created by someone else on the internet. It's open source. So this is the web viewer right here, this whole area in here. And of course, it can slide and resize. And of course, web viewers are web browsers. And the dynamic interaction of these is amazing. For example, I've got the pet cat item here. I can grab around and move it and do this kind of stuff. FileMaker Pro natively can't do that. What if I overlay this one on top of this one? Then this browser automatically resizes things. So this calendar application, written in HTML and CSS and JavaScript and all these other programming languages, all that is smashed in here and rendered by the operating system. So that's it. I mean, this is awesome stuff. So the web viewer, number one, is kind of this universal tool that can do a billion different things. Two, it has some options in it. If you double click it, you can see what the options are. You know, you can interact with the content. So you could actually have a web viewer that displays stuff, but you can't play with it. So like I was moving things around on the calendar, you could turn that off. You could display a progress bar while it's loading. You could actually display other information. You can also run a get function, which allows you to extract the content or source information out of the web viewer. So if you had a bunch of text in here and you wanted to extract it, there's the ability to go in there and get information and kind of rip the information out of the web viewer. So that kind of covers the web viewer. If you want to hang out for 60 seconds, I'll give you the historical awesomeness of this thing. when the WebViewer came out, a company called 360works, which you hear me talk about them all the time, came out with a product called Super Container. And they still sell Super Container, but largely Super Container is no longer a needed product. And what Super Container did was use a WebViewer to give you digital document management. Back in the old days, back in the FileMaker 9 and 10 days, there was no good way of storing documents in FileMaker. People were scanning documents and they couldn't save them in FileMaker. And frankly, FileMaker didn't have the foresight to see the need for this. In fact, the foresight to add this came much later, only after they saw 360works come in and personally save their butts, as far as I'm concerned. I even did a presentation at DevCon on this topic. So I've presented on this in front of 1,000 people. So it's something I know quite a bit about. And FileMaker went, oh yeah, digital document management must be important. So let's put these remote containers in the product. So that's what they did. Sometimes FileMaker kind of leads the way on some things, and sometimes they trail the way. Luckily for FileMaker, they put this universally cool tool in the product, and it allows you to tap into all sorts of things. And so very powerful, very useful. And in a similar way to what they've added with the FileMaker 16 release, they added the REST API consumption capability. FileMaker actually doesn't have a name for it. I've asked them officially. And so when FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Go goes out and consumes data from another site or another service, they're consuming this REST information. So we're talking to PayPal, or we're doing all this other stuff. FileMaker doesn't have a name for that. So I call it REST consumption. But that's another one of these capabilities that FileMaker's put in the product, and it's probably going to be another saving grace. It'll help save the platform. So where people will be saying, oh, FileMaker's too old, too out of date, can't use it, I want to use a more modern tool, then FileMaker adds a couple kind of interesting universal building block kind of pieces, the pieces that can be universally turned into almost anything. I mean, what object can make a website be a map, be a calendar, be everything? Well, it's a WebViewer. So that's your super abbreviated quick introduction to the WebViewer and how awesome it is. And once again, understand that it can consume internet data or local data out of FileMaker. Very cool technology.